Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be discussing Invincible episodes 1, 2, and 3. You can find that on Amazon Prime. If you've not subbed to the channel, please do so. Hit the notification bell. We're going to be doing these reviews every single week. Leave a comment, hit the up button, and all right. So I want to start by saying that we're all very, very well versed in the comic book. Written by Robert Kirkman. We're going to remain spoiler free in terms of the comic. So we'll talk about the things that occur in this episode, but we're not going to discuss what happens in the comic, where we know things are going. Now, my assumption, because these 3 episodes were very close to the comic, so it appears that they're following that story. Now, maybe they'll throw a twist at us and change something up. I don't know. It's very possible. There are little changes in these episodes, nothing major, but we're going to remain spoiler free for the comics. So I want to say the thing that I want to say this, and then I want you guys to tell me your opinion. You know, I always complain about how you get a lot of new writers who come in. They'll go to a comic book company or whatever, and they'll take a pre-established thing and say, I'm going to change it and, make it something that's unrecognizable. The thing I love about Kirkman is he's a guy that he didn't go to Marvel, he didn't go to DC. He worked with Image and basically said, hey, I have this cool idea. I'm going to create a character, Mark Grayson, and basically I'm going to take Superman and Spider-Man and I'm going to blend them in a way to where I'm appealing to sort of both sides of the aisle. The ones who love sort of the powerful, godlike beings, and the ones who love the more high school drama and, that kid that, everything goes bad for him. His, romances are always a mess. And he combined them in a way and created this huge, vast universe. Lots of spin-off comic books. I mean, Invincible is not just the Invincible comics. There's a lot of spin-offs as well, which hopefully we'll get as well in the animated form. But I love the fact that he does that. He will create his own thing. And in Invincible, he did an amazing job. I think it's one of the best superhero comic books of the last 20 years. And I really mean that. So I needed to get that out because I am a big fan. Guys, if you have anything you want to say regarding what you like or don't about the comic.
I'm a big Kirkman fan. As much as I'm not a huge fan of The Walking Dead as far as the show is concerned, but I don't think that I would have hated it as much if I wasn't such a comic book fan. So, and this, like you said, it seems to be basically going in line with the comic book. And they may throw a couple twists and turns, but all the characters feel like the characters from the comics. Unlike the Walking Dead show, like Andrea from the jump wasn't Andrea from the comics. So this to me feels so true to the comic that it's like the live action version of the comic. There were scenes in these episodes that were scenes almost frame for frame from the comic. It was I enjoyed it immensely.
Absolutely. And we talked about this before, but the choice of the voice actors, everybody sounds like you expect them to sound in the comic. Like we mentioned, even the choice of Seth Rogen for Alan the Ellie, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of how I imagined he sound when I was reading that book. And Invincible was always one of those properties that you imagine it would be great for this format, but you never thought it would happen, or at least I didn't think it would happen, because it is so bloody and gruesome in places. Like it can be upbeat and wholesome, but at times it goes places. So I certainly never expected to see this adapted.
And you're talking about characters. Fucking Rafi playing Rexplode made me so happy.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's such a Rafi character.
We're big fans of The League. if you've not seen that comedy series. So Mark Grayson, we're introduced to the character. They run through it really quickly, and they have to. They have a limited amount of episodes. But basically, we're given that his father is Omni-Man. He's basically a Superman type character, very powerful. And he tells his son Mark, "Hey, one day, when you hit puberty, you're going to develop powers like mine, and we're aliens from this world." We're Viltrumites, from Viltrum. And when you hit a certain age on that planet, you go out into space, you go to a planet, and you're their guardian, you're their hero. And so he gives him this whole story, and we get the nice dynamic with his mother, the whole family thing. he's in school, he's okay with the ladies, but not too great. He gets bullied all the time. So he's sort of that typical, almost Peter Parker-esque type character. He has his best friend William, and I think they do a great job of showing us that side of him, his relationship with his family, and then within very, like I said, quickly, he gets his powers, and now his dad has to teach him how to fly. I love the explanation about peeing your pants on purpose and him explaining, the way you have to think when you're using these powers. I love all that stuff. I thought it was handled very well. It moves quickly in that first episode, but I thought the pacing was fine. What did you guys think about sort of the introduction of Mark, his powers, his father, and how that all played out?
I thought it was great because we were told up front that it was a limited number of episodes. They weren't sure whether or not they were going to go past that. In the comics, there's basically like story arcs that end and then they carry into new ones. So I think that they're probably going to do one of the story arcs and then leave it open to where if they can get more episodes, they will, but they also won't leave you hanging if you don't get them. But I think that it was a great way to just establish a backstory without carrying it over for episodes and episodes and episodes. They did it very quickly because in the comics, it takes a while before he gets his powers. You kind of get his high school backstory where they just established it basically in one little fight real quickly. In the show, it was several comics where it was like that. So I had zero issue with them speeding that up a little bit, and it never felt rushed. It felt like they explained it properly, and they did a good job establishing the characters and their intentions pretty early.
Absolutely. And I was surprised by that too, that it was so much faster, but it didn't feel rushed at all. And that's not to say that the comic feels like it's moving slow, because the comic feels like it's moving at a pretty decent pace too. I find even that a lot of the dialogue, at least in my opinion, like some of the dialogue from the book actually works better when it's adapted to the screen for some odd reason. I thought certain scenes were funnier. I was more into the argument between the clones. And I even thought there was more humor to the scene where Mark's taking out the trash at his job and he goes to throw it in the trash can and accidentally hurls it off into space. And it's a really, really good adaptation. Honestly, you couldn't ask for it better. There's so much that was just adapted perfectly, and like seemingly every character that you follow in the comics. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of those more obscure characters, because Brian, I know you read more Invincible than probably any of us, but like, as you know, and and much because we've had this argument, there was a period of years where you were trying to get me to read this book and I hadn't, but I've read like everything in this world other than Invincible.
All the side content.
All the side content. So I'm looking forward to seeing those side characters. And that's something the main book does well too. And hopefully if the ratings are good here, if enough people tune in, we'll get to see some of those side stories. Even the ones that are included in Invincible, we'll get to see some of those hopefully. Because it's not just an interesting character, it's an interesting world.
Yeah, Kirkman builds a Marvel/DC size universe. Like, it is massive. There are so many characters and side stories and little plot lines. Like, it was crazy the fact that he sat back and was like, "Hey, I'm going to create my own superhero universe, and it's going to be really good. In fact, not good, great." And he definitely pulled it off.
Yeah, because like you said, the depths of each of these characters, their intentions that you find out throughout the series, and even Alan, and I'm not going to spoil where that goes, but he is very powerful and
a major character.
Yeah, he seems like a little one-off, real quick character, but he becomes a major character, and I'm really interested to see if this is kind of like a standalone season, and then they give us the spinoffs, or they basically create an animated universe, like the DC animated universe where you have multiple cartoons, but several of them tie into each other. I would love that if this was Prime's animated universe.
That'd be great.
I would be all over that.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
and like you mentioned, that's one thing Kirkman does well. He takes those little things that you think, oh, that was just a one-off, or we'll never see that character again, or that plot point was just a small plot point for this particular arc, and yet those things continue to tie into things, and you get to see the repercussions of those little things that happen. And Kirkman's very good about that, and that definitely happens in Invincible, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that's portrayed in the series.
Speaking of repercussions, the first episode, which I believe they should have only released the first episode, because I think the ending of it is such a big shocker, and it's resonated online. There's a lot of reaction videos to it. A lot of YouTubers I follow are doing videos specifically on that ending. It's big enough. They didn't need to drop episodes 2 and 3. But let's focus on that real quick. Omni-Man shows up at the Guardians of the Globe, which is essentially their Justice League. And he shows up at their base, and they all show up there, and he brutally murders every member of that team. We don't know why. We're not told why. It just happens. And he passes out. He's injured as well. And in the next episode, we have we're introduced to another group, Global Defense Agency, which is a major deal in the comics. Even more intrusive than I would say S.H.I.E.L.D. ever was.
Yes.
But Cecil Stedman is the head. He's the Nick Fury, if you will. And so basically, they're trying to figure out what happened. How the Guardians of the Globe were murdered. What the hell? Who did it? Why is Omni-Man hurt? They've never seen him hurt like this before. Now we know that he did the murder. We don't understand why. We're not told. Obviously, we know. We're not going to go into that, as I said. And who knows? Maybe they'll change things. I don't know. But it's a big mystery. The way it was handled was so fucking good.
The karate chop. The karate chop.
How did you guys react to that?
That when he catches, what was his name? Red the Flash. And he just like grabs his head and like there's slow motion, his eyeball pops out, and then throughout that, him killing everyone, and he knows all of their weaknesses. He's able to exploit that. And like I said, I was like, oh, that's so cool. But watching him karate chop somebody's head off was the highlight of that scene for me.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was brutal. And for anyone who didn't know that was coming, it had to be shocking. And it was shocking to me that this happened in this episode, and not only that, but we see him do this and everything. And in the next 2 episodes, it's just such a shocking scene, and you get to see afterwards, with, him just talking to his wife and son and everything. And he still seems like the same guy after this brutal scene. And yet we have no idea what this is about. So yeah, very well done though. Very well done. And, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the show. And like you said, there may be some minor or significant differences, but either way, it's figuring that out is a very interesting arc.
We're introduced. So you're right. He's acting completely normal, and we see him do something crazy again, and that involves an invasion from a race, the Flaxans. And so episode 2 is of the 3 episodes, episode 2 was my favorite, just because that story arc was just so beautifully told. And I love the fact that they just kept coming and coming and coming, and it was just so well done. And the leader of them, he kept getting smarter and better armors, and I love the way that all played out. But at the end of that, Omni-Man, I'm sorry, that's funny.
It just wrecks them.
He goes to their planet and fucking kills everyone. And the way it's done is so badass. Like in terms of being like a Superman fan or superhero fan, and to see someone like that just go to a world and just wreak havoc. I mean, it's just so well done. I mean, you could tell the animators probably loved every second of animating that. But yet again, he comes back all like nothing big happened. He just killed an entire world. It's like, what the hell's going on with Omni-Man? That's well done. And we're starting to see how damn powerful he is. Maybe even, he seems to be more powerful than even people think he is. And we start to see hints with that with Invincible himself. Mark, he keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger over the course of these 3 episodes. And you start to question, well, how damn strong are these guys? And clearly, Omni-Man is holding back exactly how strong he is. How do you guys think all that is being handled?
Well, yeah, and that's clear by the fact that like going back to that fight where he kills the Guardians, the Flash character, since none of us can remember his name at the moment,
Rush.
like
That's
Red Rush, yeah, yeah, exactly. It's clear that that's true because he's hitting him with those super fast punches and he's just kind of taking it, and so it's clear that he's stronger than maybe even the audience expected, and there's so much there in the whole Flaxen invasion. Yeah, that's another key indicator there that he's a bit stronger than expected because it's clear, like from the Flaxen side, I think time moves faster on their end. So when they retreat and they go back, whenever you see their leader, because he got that little scar, he has that vendetta against Mark. So he's prepping to fight Mark and to build things that are more powerful than he is. And yet, this little mech that he created, Omni-Man just shows up and wrecks it.
well, I think when he was fighting the Guardians, I think that he played up being hurt to not have suspicion pointed towards him. I don't think that they even hurted him. Hurted. I don't think that they even
it.
they didn't hurted him. But
I agree.
I don't think that they injured him or anything. I think he was playing it up because he was trying to not place suspicion on himself, because if all of them are dead and he's all beat to shit, it makes it look like he was a victim too, as opposed to the perpetrator.
Absolutely, because look at how fast he destroyed the Flaxen world and then just returned home. How quickly he did it. He could have taken them out, probably at super speed himself. Like they had a speedsters there, but at least when that speedster was dealt with, he could have quickly dispatched the rest of them. Because as far as I know, Omni-Man and that guy were the only two with super speed, in that room. So, he's probably allowing himself to take on these injuries, like you said, just so that it looks convincing.
We get so other people are starting to question the events that happen. Everybody seems to be, what exactly took place? Who could kill, the greatest superhero team, on the planet? So we have the Global Defense Agency is keeping tabs on the Grayson family. They're saying because they want to make sure that whoever did do it doesn't, come mess with them, but you're not really sure. They're keeping, they're keeping a watch. We also have a character, Damien Darkblood, who's introduced. He's a demon detective, such a DC throwback character. The way just the style of the character,
Right.
But he's on the case. He's trying to figure it out because he's confused as well as to what exactly happened. And clearly he hasn't outright said that he thinks Omni-Man is directly responsible, but he thinks Omni-Man definitely knows more than he's saying. So we have that also happening. So the walls are closing in to a degree as far as people trying to figure out what happened, and seeing sort of the tension with Omni-Man and his family, and curious to how long that's going to go, and Damien Darkblood, that I loved all his scenes.
Yeah, it's a great character, and like you said, it feels very much like a DC throwback. But the realization that it could be Omni-Man is so terrifying that Cecil, who I can tell you from several comics, including those side comics I read before I read Invincible, he's fairly paranoid, or he's paranoid enough to be cautious of and think of roughly everything. Like he refuses to believe that idea, and maybe not even refusing to believe it, but just doesn't want to accept the implications of what that could mean if Omni-Man is responsible. Because let's face it, this is a DC universe where Superman killed the Justice League. So who's going to stop Superman? Or at least that's where it felt like it was taken.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you got, this godlike being. If he's not on your side, then you're basically just fucked. Like,
Right.
And he's just trying to come to the realization that if he really did decide that he was against them, that he would win. It would be his fight to win. He would just annihilate everybody, and the world as they knew it would be over.
Exactly. He just took out, Earth's greatest defenders. So who do you have left?
Yeah. Well, you have Teen Team. There you go. With a third or fourth most popular superhero team, with Adam Eve, Robot, Duplicate, and Rexplode, Spencer's favorite character.
Dude, I love Robbie. I couldn't have picked a better person to play it. Really.
Yeah, it's so well done. The whole team. Zachary Quinto plays Robots, and he does a great job as well. But this team comes in. They're sort of there. Invincible's able to work with them during the Flaxen invasions. Sort of getting sort of his, dipping his toes in the superhero world. Eve happens to go to school with him, so there's sort of a dynamic there between those two. Now we're introduced to a character earlier, Amber. Mark is interested in her, but also you could see maybe he's looking at Eve, but Eve is with Rexplode, so there's this whole love triangle dynamic thing going on. But that gets muddier because, and I'm moving through pretty quickly here for the audience because we're talking about 3 episodes. But we have the scene that's directly from the comics where Rexplode and Duplicate have a moment together because she's able to generate multiple copies. And he's with her in the shower and with multiple copies, and they're having a little fun. Eve walks in on that. She runs to Mark, to sort of confide in him, but he's with Amber at this point. So all that stuff, I think, I love that they're doing it. I love that's that Peter Parker side of things, where all the sort of the teen drama shit. But yeah, Teen Team, and all that stuff.
Like all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's they do that very well too, like the sort of real world drama, even though you have this superhero sci-fi twist that is done very well. So yeah, like you said, is that Spider-Man scenario where you're getting that extra drama, and they're all fairly interesting characters, and Kirkman's done a great job with that too, making the cast diverse. Well, he does that with all his properties. Does a pretty good job of making the cast, diverse enough, not just demographically, but personality-wise, that they all seem like individuals. Like I think I criticize, well, me probably more than anybody else, like other comic writers, that are as popular as he is, but shouldn't be, because they write all their characters the same way. It's all from one person's perspective, but Kirkman seems to really kind of get people, and it shows, in these characters. Like Explosion is a completely self-absorbed a-hole, and it's like and he couldn't be more different from Mark or Kate or any of the other characters. And
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead. It's cool.
I was piggybacking off that because, we make these Peter Parker references where, it's very Spider-Man-esque. However, Mark doesn't feel like Spider-Man. He feels way deeper than that, and which is crazy because look at the lore and how far back Spider-Man goes. Yet this, in a couple episodes, feels like a Peter Parker type character, but he feels so much deeper than that in such a short period of time. So, you were saying the characters and how he builds them. Yes, there are some likenesses to other comics, but that's intentional. He's, like Brian said at the beginning, he's trying to kind of mesh the two to draw in everybody. So he is taking some elements that are similar, but the characters are so much deeper, so much better fleshed out. And like you said, he builds this giant universe, but they all intertwine, and it doesn't feel messy and overdone. It's just very, I don't know how to say amazing without, tying that in, but I love it. It's very good.
I wish that Robert Kirkman had, how do I say this? I hate the fact that we have only two major companies, Marvel and DC. I think we're at a point, and I love comics. I love Batman. I love Spider-Man. I love those books, but we're at a point now where I'm getting tired of them. I'm going to be honest. I am. and it's sort of, I'm getting burned out on it, and I wish we had more Robert Kirkmans out there writing it, new universes, new stories that are not attached to the, the big two. Because who the fuck said that we only could have two? You know what I mean? Like, it's so stupid that that Marvel and DC are the only two major companies. It's ridiculous, and they're the ones that supply these two, sort of continuities. There should be more, and that was one of the things that was so amazing about Invincible when I first discovered it. I'm like, oh my god, this is what I've been looking for. Something that I don't have to go to Marvel or DC. This is its own thing, and I can follow it. And I wish there was more creativity and more original content out there. And that's why the fact that this show exists is amazing. And I'm so happy that that we're getting stuff like this. And The Boys. The Boys is another good example of something like that.
Well, absolutely, and we need this. Invincible is an example of why we need these independent properties, because if you're just looking at something like, let's say, Superman, to use its closest analogy here, you're never going to get a DC universe that centers around the idea that Superman killed the Justice League and then move forward from there and then just kind of go, no, that happened, and never retcon it. You're never going to get that in mainstream DC.
It'll be a side story or an Elseworld, or they'll never
it'll be
commit.
What if Superman killed the Justice League, and then you'll go back to the main universe and he'll be in charge of the Justice League, and it will have never happened. But in this, well, at least in Invincible, as far as I've read it, horrible things do happen, and you have to deal with the repercussions of those things.
Well, we talk about other comic book companies. You got like The Goon, who's privately written by Eric Powell, out of Nashville. There's a lot of comics.
Hellboy.
Yeah, there's so many things that are so well written, so well done, and they just don't get enough attention because they're not Marvel or DC. And I'm so glad that Amazon picked this property up and was able to do this, because, and we've talked about it before privately, but Once Upon a Time or whatever, that was literally Fables, but they said they didn't want to do Fables and then stole like half the ideas from Fables and then just made it a show. And Fables is another great comic. There's so much good material that I hope that somebody like Amazon or Netflix or HBO Max, which are doing a lot of DC stuff, but I hope that somebody else picks up some of these other properties and turns them into something that I can watch.
Yeah, give me a BPRD series, animated.
Absolutely.
I'd be all over that, Let's jump into Robot. So Robot is given the task by Cecil, Guardians of the Globe are dead. I trust you, form a new team. So he's like, all right. So we go through a whole situation where he's assembling a new team. I'll highlight two of the characters because they're important later, so I'll go ahead and bring those up. That being Black Samson and Monster Girl. We don't get a lot about them. We get little bits and pieces. We know that Monster Girl, part of her ability is every time she changes into the monster, and changes back, she gets younger. She's like in her 20s, but now she's a young kid. And Black Samson, we know, had powers, and now he doesn't, and he just wears armor. But he has experience and a lot of knowledge. Those are basically the only things we're told, so I'll leave it at that. I thought they had good introductions. I thought all the characters got to show off their powers. We got some drama with Rexplode. Robots, having trouble getting this team together. He's trying to figure it out. I thought all those dynamics worked out very well. How did y'all feel about those particular scenes, those introductions?
I loved Monster Girl. I really enjoy her character in the comics, and I felt like they portrayed her pretty spot on. And Black Samson, very similar, very close, and they did a good job with both, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Both were well done. Like you said, it's very true to the comic, and it's very much, what I imagined when I was reading those comics. The voice, the mannerisms, everything. It's all been handled with a lot of care, and it shows.
Yeah, I don't know who the casting director is, but they did a great job because, with voice acting, it's different than, bringing something live to the screen, because you get facial features, you get all these things, but you don't get that from the voice actor. You just get their voice. So to, like Larry said, to match it so closely to what I'm envisioning in my head that character could sound like is amazing. That a casting director was like, you know what? It was probably Kirkman with a casting director, but sitting down and kind of envisioning who should take on those mantles.
The second episode didn't really have a twist at the end. The first one, obviously, we did. We talked about it. The third one did. The big twist at the end of episode 3 being the Mahler twins were released, and you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. It's very vague the way it's shown, and you learn at the Mahler twins were introduced in the first episode. They're supervillains. One's a clone. You don't know who's the clone. That's sort of the gag, and it was very well done. I was very impressed with how they appeared in animation form. But basically, they were imprisoned because they were trying to, I guess, kidnap or kill the president at the beginning of the first episode. They were freed, and we learned that it was in fact Robot that freed them. Don't know why. No explanation given. That's sort of a twist at the end of episode 3. We get to see a lot of other villains, when they're in prison. We also get a great scene where Omni-Man has to fight a kaiju. We don't get to see it. We just get to see the after effects of it, and we know that they kept that kaiju, survived, and they're going to keep it on ice or whatever, keep it in storage. So we know there's a lot of monsters and creatures constantly coming to Earth, and that the Global Defense Agency uses it to their advantage when they need to. So. Yeah, how'd y'all feel about the reveal that something's up with the robot?
Yeah, the character is very smart. So, without spoiling anything for the audience, Robot's thought process is so complex, it's hard to say what's going on then and there in that moment, or what that represents. And it's been a while. It's been years since I've read through Invincible. So it's hard for me to say what's going on.
I can't. He's one I can't really elaborate because I know.
Well, yeah,
where all that's going. There's so much.
Yeah, because I could spoil some huge things, but it may not be that because it's just because the character just is that complex. So I guess with Robot, I'm gonna have to take a wait and see, but I'm sure we'll talk about it after we're done recording here. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure at this moment.
Well, I think he's one of those characters that he displayed how smart he is. So for them to show this leads me to believe that there's a bigger plan. And, us as the audience who aren't super versed in this comic really don't know what that plan is yet. So I'm curious as to how they're going to portray it in a animated series.
Right, yeah, and it's unclear at this point, for anyone who hasn't seen it, whether this is something that's done for more benevolent or sinister reasons, or whether this is a cold thing he did as a machine to serve a greater good in some way, and just kind of looking forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. I want to touch on Debbie Grayson. Very well done. The whole relationship with not only with Omni-Man, sort of the loving relationship of a mother and the father to Mark Grayson. It's handled very well. I love the scene where she is telling him to come in the house, and he's like, "Make me." And she's like, being the fact that I can't, how does that make you feel? That make you feel strong? And he immediately, it crushes him, because he feels bad about, even saying it. This is a character that they're handling very well and knowing what's coming. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how all these relationships, play out over the course of the series. But I love the fact that every single character, even Todd, even shithead bully Todd, has a few moments that give an idea of who he really is. You know what I mean? Like you even minor characters that don't have a ton of dialogue, they do a great job of you feeling who they are as a person. And that was a character that I think they do a great job with. She was great in the comic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they did a good job of showing that how familiar she is with this world, and the fact that she's been married to the equivalent of Superman for all these years. That these super beings in these scenarios, it doesn't intimidate her. It just doesn't. This is her life, and she's very well adapted to it. So she's like you said, just seeing her as a wife, as a mother, and as a character in general, she's a very interesting character in the book for someone who doesn't have superpowers or fly around or shoot lasers or anything.
Well, just talk about superpowers. They don't always have to be this mythical kind of power. The fact how she commands respect, how she's able to forge that relationship with Mark to where he actually felt guilty for even saying that. He's just like, "Damn, my bad, Mom." And the way she just picked right back up and reassured him. It's one of those things where it felt real as opposed to some of the Brady-esque kind of parenting, but she did such a good job that it almost feels she's such a powerful woman, and not even superpowers. She's just commands respect, and that in itself goes a long way to showing how powerful she is as a person.
Right, and like you were saying, that relationship just feels very real because of how well plotted out the dialogue is and how well acted that was.
So I've gone through all my notes. We didn't touch on. There's a lot of battles, a lot of fighting. Certain villains. I didn't go into any of that really. We had, we're trying to get through 3 episodes here. I wanted to cover sort of the core pieces of the storyline. We'll be a little more in depth next week because we're only focusing on the one episode. But is there anything I missed that you guys think we need to discuss regarding these first 3 episodes?
Well, it's a little thing, but I loved how woke Doc Seismic was. That was pretty hilarious to me.
I chuckled several times too.
Like, I don't know if that.
I don't have anything big. I did love all the Flaxen invasion stuff. There's so many parts that were so well done that as a whole it was very entertaining to watch. But I don't think plot point wise anything else was of super relevance.
Okay, cool. I can't wait for the next episode. This is going to be one of those every week. I'm just itching to watch it. Yeah, loving it. So yeah, we'll be back next week with another review for episode number 4 of Invincible. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.